Okay, so the article I chose to critique is called Barefoot Running: The Effects of an 8-Week Barefoot Training Program. And it is an article from the Journal of Sports Medicine and was written by Scott Mullen, John Cotton, Megan Bechtold, and Bruce Toby. So, the main idea of this article, there's been preconceived notion that barefoot running is more beneficial than actually wearing a tennis shoe with support. So, the idea behind that article is that barefoot running can lead to improved strength and proprioception. However, the duration that a runner must train barefoot to observe these changes is unknown. So that's why they did the studies to kind of figure out if barefoot can be better. Running barefoot or running in classic track racing flat results in a running technique where the forefoot strikes the ground first, followed by contact of the heel and toe off with the forefoot. And the mechanism uses the muscles and ligaments of the foot to diminish the initial impact force, while the overall ground reaction force of the foot striking the ground remains the same. So, in addition, it has been suggested that barefoot running is an evolutionary adaptation of the human foot, and it has been hypothesized that this is more of an advantage than a heel strike pattern. So, what the researchers hypothesized during this article is that runners participating in barefoot running program will have improved proprioception, increased lower extremity strength, and an increase in the volume or size of the intrinsic musculature of the foot. So the basic study design was an 8-week study, 29 runners with a mean age of 36.34 years, and they were randomized into either a control group, which was 10, n equals 10, and then who completed they completed the training in the regular shoes, and then the experimental, which were the barefoot group, which was n was 14. And so they did a pre-training test that consisted of a volumetric measurement of the foot, followed by a strength and dynamic balance assessment, which I'll go into kind of a little bit later. There's five subjects actually completed the pre-test but did not complete the study for reasons not related. And then participants completed the 8 weeks of training run, and then they repeated the strength and dynamic assessment after 8 weeks, so the post-test. The basic inclusion criteria were that they had to be experienced runners aged between 14 and 65 years, able to run at least 10 miles weekly, able to run for at least 45 minutes at a time, able to attend their required study session for an 8-week time period, free from injury and cardiovascular pathology, and medically cleared to participate in physical activities. The exclusion criteria were as follows, which was inability to run, the prescribed distances, inability to attend the required study sessions for an 8-week time period, a recent lower extremity injury, not medically cleared to participate in physical activities, and presence of any cardiovascular pathology. So what the pretest was that it consisted of a volumetric measurement of the foot, followed by the dynamic balance assessment. And for the volumetric measurement, they used a custom plexiglass box that was fashioned to carry out a volumetric assessment. And this assessment was completed by measuring the volume of water displaced by the foot when it was submerged to the level of the malleoli. Then after that, they did a 5-minute stationary bike warm-up and without resistance. And the participants commenced strength, dynamic balance, and stability tests performed by a blinded physical therapist. And these tests included single leg balance, reach for distance, single leg hop on a trampoline, and vertical jump. So after the pre-test, the trial began, and they completed the 8 weeks of training runs. And these runs were performed 2 times per week on a grass surface. A grass surface was selected because of the potential injury risk to the participants. Each week, they completed an interval run and a steady state run. And they measured it independently because in previous studies where they evaluated foot strike with an infrared marker, they noticed that there was great variability between the right and the left foot in the same runners in terms of heel strike. So participants had minimal or no experiences running barefoot. Also, the training protocol was intentionally designed to be relatively low intensity to prevent injury in the runners, and the distance of the runs increased gradually each week in both the interval run and the steady state run. The activity outside the study was not restricted or documented. Well, it was documented. All participants completed it, and at the completion of the 8-week training schedule, they returned to the clinic and repeated the same testing procedures that they did at the pre-test. So this is the post-test for the strength, dynamic balance, and stability testing, which would perform the same stuff. And it was by the same blinded physical therapist. And next, the statistics of the study. So basically what they did was the statistic analysis were based on the average of 3 repetitions from each foot for the measurement of reach balance, single leg hop for distance, and vertical jump, while a single measurement was used for the time single leg hop, heel raise, and volume of water displaced. And then a pair test, 2 sample t-tests, and an analysis of covariance was used when appropriate to evaluate the level of significance and changes from pre to post training. And then the differences in changes from pre to post training between the control and the training groups. All analyses were performed on an intention to treat basis, and no multiple comparison adjustments were made. So the results of the study, 24 patients then were put through the post test, so that's what I said before, and then there was no significant differences were found in all the pre-training measurements between those who completed and those who did not complete the study. For the reach and balance, I'll go through each of the differences they found in each one of the tests they performed, so the reach and the balance. The control, the reach, and the balance test demonstrated an average increase of 11.7% on the right and 11.2% on the left. And then in the experimental, the increase in reach was 9.1 on the right and 4.6 on the left. So the increased percentage change from pre to post test was found to be significant for both left and right feet within the control group, and for the right foot only within the experimental group. There's no significant difference between the control and barefoot groups, and an increased percentage change from pre to post test for the right or left foot. So next, we'll go through the single leg hop for distance. And this one, in the control group, the single leg hop for distance demonstrated an increase of 3.6 on the right and 5.3 on the left. And then in the experimental, there was an increase in 3.2 on the right and 0.3 on the left. So the percentage change in single leg hop for distance for pre to post test was not found to be significant within each group for both left and right feet. There were no significant differences between the control and barefoot groups in percentage change for pre to post test for right or left foot for the single leg hop for distance. Next, we'll go to single leg hop for time. So in the control group, there was an increase in 5.6 on the right and 10.4% on the left. In the experimental, there was an increase of 16.5% on the right and 8.1 on the left. So an increased change in maximal single leg hops for time for pre to post test was found to be significant for both left and right feet within barefoot groups, and for the left foot only with the control group for the single leg hop for time test. So there was no differences between the control and experimental groups in increased percentage change from pre to post test for the right foot, the left foot, or for the average between the left and the right foot. The next one is the vertical leap. So this one in the control group, there's an increase of 5.9%. In the experimental group, there was an increase of 2.6. So the increased percentage change in vertical leap between pre and post tests within the control or experimental participants had minimal or no experience running barefoot. So basically, the training protocol was intentionally designed, like I said, to be relatively low intensity and to prevent injury in runners. And the group was not found to be significant. The increased percentage change in vertical leap was not significant in pre and post test. So really the intensity of the program didn't help with any of them. For heel raises, the control group, the percentage change in heel raises decreased by 2.3 on the right and also decreased by 1.5 on the left. Experimental, there was an increase by 4.6 on the right and decreased by 1.6 on the left. There was no significant changes in number of heel raises completed and were noted between the pre-test and post-test for left or right feet within the control or experimental groups. And then last is volume. In the control group, the percentage change in volume of the foot was noted to decrease by 0.2% on the right and 3.3 on the left. And then in the experimental group, there was an increase of 1.2 on the right and 0.3 on the left. No significant changes in volume of the foot from pre to post testing were observed or left feet or on the right or left foot with the barefoot or control groups. So basically the discussion section, the first study this was kind of the first study of evaluating the effects of barefoot running training programs, and although they did not observe statistically significant changes between the pre and the post-test evaluation, this does not necessarily mean that changes do not occur with the differences. When comparing the differences in changes from baseline to 8 weeks between the barefoot and control groups, the improvements were not significant. 0.05 levels were all measured. This may have been because of the training protocol as well as the participants' familiarity with the testing procedures. And researchers did not note that there was greater improvements in the right foot than the left. Or they did note, sorry. And it is possible that this is because of foot dominance, and the individual components of the testing protocol and their validity were based on recent physical therapy literature. And also their small sample size may affected their ability to detect significant changes between the two groups. And then a post hoc power analysis indicated they would need actually 56 participants in each group to detect a significant difference between the two groups. And to perform the study on a larger scale would actually be ideal because you have more participants to work with. And also, participants would only complete runs associated with study and would refrain from lower extremity strength training during the study period would also be ideal. What the research talked about was that it may take months or years or perhaps a program that is more intense or longer in duration to affect any changes in the runners. And what they did was designed as an 8-week program to attempt to define a minimum amount of time needed to observe the desired effects of a barefoot running program. A higher intensity program would likely need to be much longer in duration to allow the runners to incrementally increase the intensity without increased risk of injury. But the intensity without increased risk of, the duration of their program is used for many short-term season running athletes, such as high school track, cross country, or football. And many programs have their athletes run barefoot on grass or on soft surfaces several times a week. So their results demonstrate that it may not produce an improvement in the athlete's strength, proprioception, and dynamic balance, or change in the size of intrinsic foot musculature by measurement of the volume of the foot, but may put them at risk of injury. It is also possible that the benefits of barefoot running are not related really to increased strength, improvement in dynamic balance, improved stability, but they are instead related to biomechanical changes that occur when you're running the gait. And then lastly, further studies are needed to evaluate how long-term barefoot training affects runners and the incidence of injuries. Thank you.